The conference room on Park Avenue reeked of expensive wood polish and a sense of impending doom. A silver Montblanc pen trembled in Lily Hart's hand as her lawyer murmured, "Just sign here." Across the highly polished table, her soon-to-be ex-husband, Cole Mercer, leaned back, adjusting his impeccably tailored suit. The Rolex on his wrist caught the light, ticking louder than the frantic rhythm of her heart. He wouldn't even glance her way. Outside, Manhattan was shrouded in mist. The Fifth Avenue lights blurred through the rain-streaked window. Lily's reflection looked ghostly, pale, 6 months pregnant, and clinging to what remained of her dignity. Cole's voice sliced through the silence, smooth yet sharp, like a freshly honed blade. "Let's keep this simple, Lily. I have a flight to Los Angeles this afternoon." He didn't elaborate. Everyone knew the reason. The tabloids had been buzzing about his affair with the model Sloane Rivers for months. Lily pressed the pen against the document. Her signature bled into the white paper like a newly opened wound. A lone tear escaped, landing on the ink and smearing across the word, "divorce." The rustling of her lawyer gathering the papers sounded like nails being hammered into a coffin. Cole stood, sliding his iPhone into his pocket. "Take care," he said, his tone casual, the same way one might address a stranger in a coffee shop. She wanted to scream, to unleash a torrent of pent-up rage and grief. Instead, she forced a smile, the kind of smile people wear when they've lost everything and can't afford to completely fall apart. As the door closed behind him, she released a shaky, silent, final exhale. The city outside remained indifferent. Taxis honked, sirens wailed in the distance. Life went on. But for Lily, time froze in that sterile room filled with legal documents and lingering ghosts. Her lawyer hesitated. "Do you need me to call someone?" Lily shook her head. "No, I'll walk." She tucked the signed documents into her worn leather bag, grabbed her old iPhone, and stepped out into the drizzle. The rain tasted metallic, almost bitter on her tongue. She walked past the luxury storefronts, Cartier, Dior, Tiffany, each window reflecting a version of the life that used to be hers. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, feeling a faint flutter of movement. "We'll be okay," she whispered to the baby. "I promise." Suddenly, flashbulbs exploded across the street. A photographer yelled, "Mrs. Mercer, is it true he's marrying Sloane next month?" Lily stopped dead in her tracks, finally realizing that the divorce wasn't the end. It was the beginning of her public humiliation, and the entire world was already watching. The wedding photos saturated every news feed before Lily even finished her morning coffee. Cole Mercer, the visionary tech CEO, and Sloane Rivers, the dazzling model, smiled under a glittering chandelier inside the Plaza Hotel. The captions read like a love poem for the cruelest power couple of the year. Sloane's gown shimmered with meticulously hand-stitched crystals. Cole's tuxedo was perfectly pressed, his eyes radiating pride. They looked like the kind of people the world idolizes, untouchable, flawless, and heartless. Lily sat in her small, rented room in Queens, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that barely covered her pregnant belly. The cold light of her old MacBook Air illuminated her tired face. Each tabloid headline felt like a physical blow. She turned the screen away, but the images of the wedding were burned into her mind. Cole's arm around Sloane, his lips pressed against her cheek, the way he used to kiss her when the world still felt safe. A knock on the door jolted her back to reality. It was Maya Brooks, her college roommate and now a sharp-tongued lawyer, who refused to let Lily wallow in silence. "I brought breakfast," Maya said gently, holding 2 Starbucks coffees and a brown paper bag. "And the news? You've seen it." Lily nodded, her voice barely audible. "He married her the same week our divorce was finalized." Maya exhaled sharply. Classic Cole. He thinks this makes him untouchable. But the law doesn't forget so easily. He still owes prenatal coverage under the spousal health clause. Lily forced a weak smile. "He'll find a way to weasel out of it. Then we'll find a way to corner him," Maya said, placing a coffee in her hand. "Drink up. You're keeping 3 lives alive now." Lily glanced down at her stomach, feeling a soft movement under her palm. 3 little heartbeats depending on her. She wanted to believe Maya's unwavering confidence, but everything inside her felt empty and bruised. That night, sleep eluded her. Rain hammered against the window, relentless and unforgiving. She scrolled through her phone again, staring at pictures from the wedding, taken in the same ballroom where Cole had once whispered that he loved her. The comments below were brutal. Upgrade achieved. That poor ex-wife must be seething. She locked the phone, turned off the light, and sat in the darkness. Her mind replayed every memory. The way Cole used to text her from board meetings, their late-night pizza binges on the floor of their first tiny apartment. She had believed in him, defended him, built his world from the ground up while working 2 jobs. And now that world had no place for her. The next morning, she dragged herself to her part-time editing job at a small media agency in Midtown. Her supervisor barely glanced up. "Hey Lily, we need those promo cuts by tonight. Also, HR wants to confirm your maternity leave status." Translation: they were already preparing to replace her. During lunch, she sat on a bench outside Rockefeller Plaza, taking a bite of a cold sandwich. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the building's glass. Tired eyes, messy hair, a body both fragile and resilient. She pulled out a notebook and began to write. "I will rebuild, even if it kills me." Just as she closed the notebook, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared. "You should stop showing up where you're not wanted. He's moved on. So should you." No name, but Lily knew who it was. The words reeked of Sloane's perfumed cruelty, delivered in digital ink. She deleted the message and whispered, "You'll see." When she stood up, the city felt different. Colder, sharper, but undeniably alive. She could almost hear Manhattan whispering its challenge. Fall apart or fight back. As she walked away, a headline flashed across the Times Square billboard. Cole Mercer and Sloane Rivers jet off to the Hamptons for their honeymoon. Lily didn't stop to look. She just kept walking, hand on her belly, eyes focused forward. Because for the first time, revenge didn't feel like hate. Felt like survival. It was nearing midnight when the last bus rattled through the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan. The city that never slept looked gray and weary, mirroring Lily Hart's own exhaustion. Her editing shift had run late again, and by the time she stepped into the rain, the neon lights reflected off the puddles like shattered dreams. She clutched her worn leather bag tightly to her chest, her breath visible in the cool night air. 6.5 months pregnant, exhausted and utterly alone. She was taking things one day at a time. The bus was almost empty. A man in a dark overcoat sat in the back, absorbed in his iPad. An older woman dozed by the window, her grocery bag resting on her lap. Lily sank into a seat, massaging her swollen ankles. She checked her phone. No new messages, not even from Maya. The news of her ex's wedding still dominated the headlines, and each scroll felt like ripping open a fresh wound. She put her phone away and stared out the window at the glowing skyline. Halfway across the Queensboro Bridge, the bus lurched violently. A tire hit a pothole, and Lily's world tilted precariously. A sharp pain tightened in her lower abdomen. "Oh no!" she whispered, gripping the seat. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The driver called out, "Everything okay, miss?" Before she could answer, the man from the back had already risen. He moved quickly with quiet confidence. "She needs air," he said, his voice calm and steady. He removed his coat and knelt beside her. "Breathe slowly and deeply. I'm Edward." His tone was professional and reassuring, as if he was accustomed to taking charge. The driver pulled over near a gas station. The rain intensified. Edward offered his umbrella, carefully guiding her off the bus. "You shouldn't be riding alone this late," he said as they waited for a cab under the flickering street light. His dark hair was damp, a few strands falling across his forehead. He didn't ask prying questions, nor did he judge her trembling hands. He simply stood there, holding the umbrella over them both, allowing the rain to soak his shoulders. When the taxi arrived, he helped her inside. "Hospital?" the driver asked. Lily nodded weakly. Edward pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. If they give you any trouble, call this number. Dr. Harris at Columbia Medical. He owes me a favor. Lily blinked, confused. Why are you helping me? Edward hesitated. Because I've seen that look before. Someone trying to keep it all together. His voice softened. No one should have to fight alone at midnight. Before she could thank him, he closed the cab door. The rain blurred his face as the taxi sped away, leaving him standing in the glow of the street light, coatless and silent. At the hospital, Lily was told the contractions were stress-induced, false labor, but a serious warning sign. The nurse gave her a sympathetic smile. You need rest, honey, and someone to take care of you. Lily nodded, clutching Edward's card. The edges were already damp from her sweat. Edward Langley. Langley Holdings. The name stirred a vague memory, a whisper from another life she thought she'd left far behind. When she arrived home near dawn, the city was still wet and eerily quiet. She placed the card on her nightstand beside her ultrasound photo. 3 tiny heartbeats. 3 reasons to survive. Before falling asleep, she opened her old laptop and Googled his name. The screen lit up with headlines. Edward Langley, the reclusive billionaire who disappeared after his wife's death. Lily stared at the photo, his face in a tuxedo, standing next to a woman who looked like she was carved from sunlight. Her stomach churned. The man who had helped her tonight wasn't just kind. He was powerful, and fate had just intertwined her life with his in a way neither of them could have predicted. The next morning, a dull gray light filtered through the blinds of Lily's tiny apartment. The rain had stopped, but the city still smelled of metal and gasoline. She sat at the kitchen table, sipping weak coffee from a chipped mug, and staring at Edward Langley's business card. The name felt surreal, like something ripped from a movie. She had met a billionaire on a broken-down night bus, and he had shown her more kindness than her own husband ever had. Still, she told herself not to dwell on it. People like him didn't belong in her world. By 10 o'clock, she was sitting in the waiting room of the community clinic in Queens. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled of antiseptic. She rubbed her stomach gently, whispering, "Hang in there, my loves." The nurse finally called her name, and within minutes, Lily was lying on the exam table, her eyes fixed on the monitor as the sonographer spread the cold gel across her skin. "Everything looks busy in there," the woman murmured with a faint smile. "Miss Hart, has anyone told you you're carrying triplets?" The words hit her like a jolt of electricity. "Triplets?" Lily's mouth went dry. "Yes, 3, the nurse said, adjusting the screen. 3 small heartbeats flickered like tiny stars. "You're going to need close monitoring and plenty of rest. This kind of pregnancy is high risk." Lily's pulse quickened. She was already struggling to pay rent and stay healthy. Now she had 3 babies growing inside her. Her hands trembled as the nurse handed her a stack of medical forms and a list of specialists. "If you feel dizzy, call immediately," she warned. Outside, the autumn wind cut through her thin coat. She stopped by a pharmacy to buy prenatal vitamins, but had to put 1 bottle back when she saw the total. Her credit card had only $27 left on it. That evening, Maya stopped by with groceries and a small Amazon box. "Don't ask how I knew," she said, placing it on the table. "It's a used Kindle. Read something that doesn't break your heart." Lily smiled weakly. Inside the box was Atomic Habits by James Clear, bookmarked halfway through. "You highlighted all over this," Lily said. "Yeah," Maya replied. "I needed it after my last breakup. You'll need it more." They ate instant noodles together while the city hummed beyond the windows. For a moment, Lily felt almost normal again. But later that night, a sharp pain gripped her abdomen. She gasped, spilling her tea. Maya jumped up. "Hospital now." The emergency room reeked of bleach and fear. Lily was rushed into an exam bay, her heart pounding in her chest. The doctor checked her vitals, then looked her directly in the eye. "You're showing early signs of preeclampsia, high blood pressure and swelling. Stress will make it worse. You'll need supervision, maybe even bed rest." Lily's throat constricted. I can't afford that, she whispered. You can't afford not to, the doctor replied softly. Hours later, Lily sat in the hospital hallway, exhausted, with paperwork piled on her lap. Her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. If you're smart, you'll stop dragging this out. He's not coming back for you. Sloan again. Lily deleted the message, her jaw clenched tight. Then, a nurse approached with a clipboard. Miss Hart, you have a visitor. Lily frowned. A visitor? The nurse gestured toward the glass doors. Standing there in a gray suit and rain-soaked hair was Edward Langley. He held a small bouquet of lilies. White, simple, understated. How did you even know I was here? She asked as he approached. He offered a faint smile. You said you might need that doctor's number. I thought I'd check to see if you actually called. And just like that, for the first time in months, Lily felt the world stop spinning around her. A week after her hospital scare, Lily tried to return to some semblance of normalcy. She worked from home for the agency, editing short videos on her old MacBook Air, pausing every few minutes to catch her breath. The doctor had ordered her to rest, but rent was due, and her insurance barely covered anything. She promised herself she'd take it easy, just finish one more project, one more week. That morning, she decided to walk to the grocery store. The air was crisp and cold, and her coat barely buttoned over her growing belly. Inside the building lobby, she pressed the elevator button and waited. The doors slid open, and her heart stopped. Standing inside was Sloan Rivers. She looked even more impossibly glamorous up close. Perfect hair, flawless skin, a designer trench coat that probably cost more than Lily's yearly rent. Beside her stood a stylist carrying garment bags and a young assistant scrolling through an iPhone. For a moment, time stood still. Sloane's eyes flicked over Lily's pregnant belly, and a cruel smirk curled across her lips. Oh, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You're Lily, right? Cole's ex? Lily nodded silently. Sloane leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for the others to hear. You're glowing. I mean, for someone doing this alone. The assistant snickered. The elevator doors opened again, and Sloane stepped out, her expensive perfume lingering behind like poison. Good luck, sweetheart, she added, tapping her diamond ring against the railing before walking away. Lily stood frozen until the doors closed. Her face burned with humiliation. The sting cut deeper than any headline or whispered rumor. She wanted to scream, but instead, she pressed her hands against her belly, whispering to her babies, "Don't listen. We're not alone." She walked out of the building and into the wind. Across the street was a small Starbucks. She ducked inside, ordered a plain coffee she couldn't finish, and sat by the window. Outside, life continued, oblivious to her pain. People in suits, laughter, umbrellas gliding past. She pulled out her notebook and wrote, "Pain doesn't kill you. It teaches you who you are." Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Got your hospital bill. I'll help for now, but please, Lise, you need a miracle." Lily smiled bitterly. "Yeah," she muttered. "A miracle would be nice." Just then, a black Mercedes S-Class slowed near the curb. A familiar figure emerged, holding a paper bag and an umbrella. Edward Langley. He spotted her through the window, hesitated, then entered the cafe. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. Lily blinked in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I had a meeting nearby," he said, setting the bag down. "And I thought you might need something other than hospital food." Inside the bag were muffins and herbal tea. She tried to protest. "You don't have to keep checking on me." He smiled softly. "Maybe I want to." Lily stared at him, unsure how to respond. Edward's eyes weren't the cold, calculating blue of the wealthy. They were warm, steady, curious. The kind of eyes that made you want to trust again. "I saw your ex's wedding photos," he added carefully. "They looked expensive." Lily laughed for the first time in weeks. A dry, shaky laugh. "Yeah, he's good at expensive." Edward tilted his head. "Then maybe it's time you learned to be good at surviving." When Lily looked up, the rain had started again, tapping against the windows like tiny reminders of the world's indifference. She sipped the tea, feeling something unexpected, a sense of calm. Outside, Sloane's luxury car sped past in a blur. But this time, Lily didn't flinch. She simply smiled faintly, whispering, "We'll be okay," because in a city that had taken everything from her, a stranger had given her back something invaluable: hope. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, sealed in heavy ivory paper and embossed with Cole Mercer's law firm logo. Lily stared at it for a long moment before tearing it open. The first line read like a direct order: non-disclosure and financial settlement agreement. She didn't need to read any further to know what it meant. Cole wanted silence. Her silence. She read each clause carefully, her eyes blurring with disbelief. The offer included a modest financial payout in exchange for complete confidentiality. She could never speak publicly about their marriage, their divorce, or the pregnancy. The words "irreversible forfeiture of moral claims" jumped off the page like venom. At the bottom, a signature line waited for her name. Her phone rang. It was Maya. "You got it too, didn't you?" Lily's voice trembled. "He's trying to buy my silence." "Of course he is," Maya snapped. "He's gearing up for a new IPO launch. Any hint of scandal involving a pregnant ex-wife could sink him." Lily placed a hand on her stomach, feeling a faint flutter of movement. "He's offering just enough to make me think twice. Enough for a few months of rent, maybe cover medical bills." "Don't sign it," Maya said firmly. "You sign that and he gets to rewrite the story. He wins twice. Once when he left you and again when you disappear." But Maya's confidence couldn't mask the harsh reality. The bills were piling up. Her insurance claim was still in limbo. She had less than $100 in her bank account. The temptation was overwhelming. That night, she laid the document on her kitchen table. The pen trembled in her hand. "Maybe it's easier this way," she whispered. "Just end it quietly." Then, as she looked at the signature line, her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "If you really cared about your babies, you'd stop embarrassing their father." Lily froze. The room seemed to tilt. She didn't have to guess who had sent it. Sloane's tone was unmistakable. A blend of arrogance and insecurity cloaked in fake concern. Something inside Lily snapped. She ripped the paper in half, then again, until the pieces fell like confetti on the floor. "He doesn't get to silence me," she said aloud. "Not this time." The next morning, she marched into Maya's office at a small firm downtown. Maya looked up, surprised. "Tell me you didn't sign it." Lily dropped the shredded pages onto her desk. "I didn't, but I want to make sure he never tries this again." Maya smiled grimly. "That's my girl. We'll file for full medical coverage under spousal responsibility. The court will make him pay for the hospital expenses for all 3 babies. He'll hate every second of it." That afternoon, they mailed the documents to Cole's corporate attorney. Within hours, the phone rang again, this time a private number. "Lily?" Cole's voice drawled, cold and condescending. "Do you really want to make this ugly?" She inhaled slowly. "You made it ugly the day you walked away. You think anyone will believe you?" He sneered. "You're a nobody living in Queens. I own this city. Then maybe it's time the city saw who you really are." She hung up before he could respond. That night, Lily sat on her bed, surrounded by unpaid bills and empty notebooks. She felt terrified, but also something new, something sharp and alive. Power. As the wind rattled the windows, she whispered to her unborn children, "They think I'm weak. They have no idea what a mother can do." Outside, thunder cracked across the skyline. For the first time, Lily didn't flinch. She looked out towards Manhattan's glowing towers and thought, "Let it begin." The night started with an eerie stillness, the kind that makes you instinctively sense that something is about to break. Lily woke at 2:47 a.m. to a dull ache in her lower abdomen. Initially, she dismissed it as another false alarm. She'd experienced countless false contractions over the past few weeks. But this time, the pain was different, sharper, rhythmic, and coming in increasingly closer waves. When she attempted to stand, her knees buckled beneath her. A warm trickle ran down her leg. Her breath hitched. "No, no, not now," she whispered. "Please, not yet." Outside, the rain tapped rhythmically against the window, as if whispering in sync with her racing heartbeat. She reached for her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling uncontrollably. The dispatcher responded calmly, "Stay on the line, ma'am. Help is on its way." But the contractions intensified, her body shaking with each surge of pain. She gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, whispering, "Please, babies, just hold on." A frantic pounding on the door startled her. She dragged herself to open it and froze in disbelief. Edward Langley stood there, completely drenched in the rain, his eyes wide with alarm. "The nurse called me," he said quickly. "You weren't answering your phone. Let's go." He draped her coat over her shoulders, half carrying her down the stairs. A black SUV waited outside, the engine already running. "Stay with me, Lily," he urged as she gasped through another contraction. His steady voice calmed her, even as searing pain ripped through her body. The city was unnervingly deserted at that hour. Streetlights cast an eerie glow on the slick pavement. Inside the car, Edward kept his hand on hers throughout the entire drive. "You're going to be okay," he murmured. "I've got you." At Columbia Medical, nurses rushed to meet them. "Triplets," Edward informed the doctor, his tone allowing for no debate. Within moments, Lily was being wheeled into the operating room, her vision blurring from exhaustion and overwhelming fear. The last thing she saw before the bright lights engulfed her was Edward standing by the window, watching her disappear behind the double doors. Hours passed in what felt like mere seconds. When she finally woke, the world seemed to be completely silent. Then, she heard it. 3 faint cries, delicate yet undeniably real. Tears streamed down her face before she could even see them. The nurse smiled warmly. "They're small, but strong. All 3 of them are breathing on their own." Lily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, so intense it closed her throat. "Can I see them?" "Soon," the nurse replied gently. "They're in the NICU for observation." "You did beautifully." Edward appeared at her bedside, his shirt rumpled, his hair a mess, and his eyes bloodshot from being awake for hours. He held 3 tiny knitted caps in his hands, pink, blue, and yellow. "They're perfect," he whispered. Lily tried to smile. "How did you—" "I called Charlotte," he said. "She sent them. She's already organizing a care team for you." She blinked, confused. "Why would you do all this for me?" Edward hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, "Because sometimes life gives you a second chance when you least expect it, and I'm not the kind of man who ignores that." Her fingers brushed against his. Something unspoken passed between them, gentle, electric, dangerous. Moments later, a nurse wheeled in 3 incubators. Lily stared through the glass at the tiniest faces she had ever seen. They looked so fragile, like porcelain angels. Each one moved slightly, as if already fighting to stay in this world. "Hi, my loves," she whispered. "Mommy's here." Edward stepped closer, watching her with quiet awe. "They're going to have your strength," he said. She shook her head. "No, they'll have their own, stronger than mine." As dawn painted the Manhattan skyline, Lily finally allowed herself to breathe. The pain, the loneliness, the humiliation. It had all led to this moment of fragile perfection. And as the sun rose, Edward's reflection appeared beside hers in the glass, their faces overlapping. Neither of them spoke, but they both knew that this wasn't just the end of one life. It was the beginning of another. The days after the birth became a blur of antiseptic smells and sleepless nights. Lily lived between the NICU and her hospital bed, watching 3 tiny miracles fight for every breath. Each baby wore a bracelet with a name she'd whispered during labor. Noah, Grace, and Eli. They were so small that she could cradle an entire hand in her palm. Every beep of the monitors reminded her how fragile life could be. Edward visited every day, always welcome, always calm. He brought coffee, clean blankets, and a comforting silence the kind that made it easier to breathe. The nurses seemed to recognize him, whispering, "That's Langley," as he walked by. But to Lily, he wasn't the billionaire from the headlines. He was the man who held umbrellas, who didn't ask questions, who sat quietly when she cried. One afternoon, a social worker came in with a clipboard. "Miss Hart, we need to discuss post-discharge arrangements. Given your health and the baby's conditions, you'll need full-time assistance for at least 2 months." Lily's stomach twisted. Assistance meant money. Money she didn't have. She tried to smile. "I'll manage. I can work remotely." The woman frowned. "That won't be enough. You're recovering from surgery and raising 3 preemies. It's not safe." After she left, Lily stared out the window, watching snowflakes drift over the Manhattan skyline. She felt trapped between pride and desperation. That evening, Edward showed up again, holding a paper folder. "I heard about the discharge," he said gently. "I'd like to offer you a place to stay, at least until the babies are strong enough." She blinked. "What?" "There's a guest house on my family's property on the Upper East Side. Private, quiet, fully staffed. You'd have access to medical care around the clock." Lily frowned. "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," he said, meeting her gaze. "It's logistics. The hospital's expensive, and I've already arranged a neonatal specialist for follow-up. You'd be safer there." "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. Edward hesitated. "Because I've been where you are. I watched someone I loved fight for life while everyone else turned away. I couldn't save her, but maybe this time I can help someone else." His honesty disarmed her. Still, she couldn't shake the fear of dependency, the same trap she'd fallen into with Cole. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I need rules, clear ones." Edward nodded. "Then we'll have rules together." They outlined them that night in the hospital cafeteria. She would pay what she could, when she could. She would remain independent, responsible for her career decisions. No emotional obligations, no blurred lines. When they finished, Edward extended his hand. "Deal?" Lily shook it. "Deal." 2 days later, a black car picked her up from the hospital. The city shimmered under a blanket of snow as they drove toward the Upper East Side. The Langley estate appeared like something out of a dream, a gated townhouse with ivy-covered walls and warm light glowing through the windows. Charlotte Langley, Edward's sister, greeted her at the door. "Welcome," she said kindly. "We've prepared the nursery." Lily stepped inside and froze. 3 cribs stood side by side beneath a soft mobile, sunlight spilling across white curtains. A nurse adjusted bottles on a tray. It didn't feel like a stranger's house. Felt like safety. That night, after the babies were finally asleep, Lily stood at the window, looking down at the city she once thought had destroyed her. Now it glittered again, distant but beautiful. She whispered, "Thank you." Not sure if she meant Edward, fate, or the quiet miracle of still standing. In another wing of the house, Edward sat by his study window, sipping black coffee. From across the snowy courtyard, he could see her silhouette in the nursery light. And though neither of them said it out loud, both knew something bigger had begun. It started with a single photograph, grainy, out of focus, but powerful enough to set the internet on fire. A man in a navy coat holding a tiny baby outside Columbia Medical. The headline read, "Mystery billionaire seen leaving hospital with unknown woman's child." Within hours, gossip sites identified him as Edward Langley, the reclusive widower turned investment mogul. And the woman, though her face was half hidden by a scarf, was soon identified, too. Lily Hart, ex-wife of tech CEO Cole Mercer. Lily found out the next morning when her phone exploded with messages. Maya called first. "Don't check social media. Don't even open your phone. The vultures are circling." But it was too late. A flood of headlines filled her screen. From divorce papers to a billionaire's arms, Mercer's ex finds a new fortune. The photos made it look like Edward and Lily were a couple. The baby's theirs. One outlet even claimed they'd been secretly dating before her divorce. Her hands shook as she read the comments, mocking, cruel, relentless. Guess she landed on her feet. Smart girl. Upgrade achieved. It was the same humiliation all over again, but this time on a global scale. Edward came to the guest house within the hour. His expression was calm, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his anger. "I've already contacted my publicist," he said, setting his phone on the table. "We'll issue a statement clarifying that you're under medical care through my foundation." "I don't want pity," Lily snapped. "I want them to stop." Edward's voice softened. "They won't. Not yet. But the truth will outlast the noise." Later that afternoon, Charlotte joined them, bringing a pot of tea and her quiet authority. "We can't let this spiral," she said. "We'll announce that the Langley Foundation is sponsoring neonatal care for single mothers. That reframes the story. Makes you a cause, not a scandal." Lily frowned. "You want to turn me into a press strategy?" Charlotte met her gaze. "I want to protect you, dear, and your children. Trust me, public sympathy is armor in this city." The statement went live that evening. The Langley Foundation confirms it is supporting Miss Lily Hart and her newborn triplets through its maternal health initiative. It was polished, professional, and completely true. Yet, the truth didn't stop the whispers. It only redirected them. Cole Mercer saw the news from his office overlooking Central Park. His assistant froze when he slammed his phone on the desk. "She's playing the victim," he growled. "And Langley's helping her. Get my PR team. We're not letting her ruin my image before the IPO." Sloane, lounging nearby in a white silk robe, smirked. "Maybe she's better at this than you thought." "Don't push me, Sloane." "Oh, darling," she said sweetly, sipping champagne. "I don't have to." Back at the Langley townhouse, Lily tried to feed the babies, her hands trembling. The nurse turned on soft music to calm them. Edward stood in the doorway, silent, his expression unreadable. "I didn't want this," Lily murmured. "I didn't want to be in the spotlight again." He stepped closer. "You didn't ask for any of it, but you can choose what happens next." Lily looked up, meeting his eyes. "And what if I fail again?" Edward smiled faintly. "Then you'll fail forward." That night, she sat by the window after everyone had gone to bed, scrolling through another article. This one from the Wall Street Journal. Langley Foundation's new program earns praise for supporting single mothers. For the first time, the comments below weren't cruel. Someone had written, "Whoever she is, she must be strong." Lily closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. For the first time, the world was talking about her strength, not her shame. And somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was her quiet comeback, written one headline at a time. Spring crept into Manhattan like a sigh of relief. The snow had melted, the air smelled faintly of lilac, and the Langley townhouse garden bloomed behind wrought iron gates like a hidden paradise. It had been nearly a year since that first night on the bus, since Lily's life had fallen apart and begun again in the same breath. The triplets were thriving now, all chubby cheeks and giggles, filling the house with music. Lily had started working part-time as a freelance editor again, balancing motherhood and independence with quiet grace. But something had changed between her and Edward. It wasn't sudden. It grew slowly, like the ivy crawling up the garden walls. Late-night talks became laughter over morning coffee, and shared glances lingered a little too long. They never crossed the lines they'd drawn months ago, but somehow those invisible borders had begun to blur. One afternoon, Edward stood at the garden gate with a bouquet of peonies, Lily's favorite. She looked up from her laptop as he approached, smiling shyly. "Those are dangerous," she teased. "Flowers mean something's coming." He laughed softly. "Then I guess I should come with a warning label." He hesitated, then handed her a small velvet box. Inside wasn't a diamond the size of pride. It was a simple platinum band, elegant and quiet, engraved with 3 initials. "NG. For them," he said softly. "And for you if you'll let me." Lily froze. "Edward, I'm not asking because I feel sorry for you," he interrupted gently. "I'm asking because somewhere along the way you became my peace. You and those 3 miracles upstairs, you brought life back into this house." Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to be anyone's charity case. He stepped closer. Then don't be. Be my partner. On your terms. Lily looked down at the ring, the sunlight glinting off the metal. She thought of every moment that had led her here, the divorce, the hospital nights, the loneliness. Somehow it had all led her to this man who offered not rescue, but respect. Yes, she whispered finally, but only if you promise one thing. Anything. That we never let the world define us again. Edward smiled. Deal? They married the following weekend in the very garden where he'd asked. Only 5 people attended. Charlotte, Maya, the housekeeper who had become like family, and of course the 3 babies in tiny white outfits. The ceremony was short but beautiful. No photographers, no press, no grandeur, just truth. Charlotte read a small blessing from an old Langley family book. May this home never mistake silence for emptiness, nor strength for hardness. When Edward slipped the ring on Lily's finger, her hands trembled. For the first time, she didn't feel small in her own story. She felt chosen. Afterward, they shared a simple meal under the ivy-covered pergola. The sun dipped low, painting the garden gold. Edward poured champagne. Lily toasted with ginger ale. To survival, she said, raising her glass. To love that doesn't need an audience, Edward added. Maya clinked her glass. And to proving that sometimes the good guys win. That night, after everyone had gone, Lily stood alone in the quiet garden, barefoot on the cool stone path. The air smelled of jasmine. She looked up at the glowing Manhattan skyline beyond the walls and whispered, "We did it, Mama." The babies stirred in the nursery upstairs, their soft cries drifting through the open windows like a lullaby. Lily turned toward the light of the house. They're home now, she smiled. For the first time since she'd signed those divorce papers, she wasn't just surviving. She was living. The Langley Foundation Gala was the kind of event people spent years trying to get invited to, a glittering evening at the Ritz-Carlton filled with Manhattan's elite. Every table dripped with crystal. Every guest sparkled with old money and polished ambition. It was also the first time Lily Hart Langley would appear publicly since her quiet wedding. Her hands trembled slightly as Charlotte zipped the back of her gown. It was a sleek black Dior dress, classic but modest, paired with a delicate Tiffany pendant. "You look radiant," Charlotte said, adjusting the clasp. "Elegant, unapologetic, exactly what we need tonight." "I'm still not sure about this," Lily admitted, taking a shaky breath. "I don't want to be a headline again." Charlotte smiled knowingly. "My dear, you don't have to be a headline. You are the story." Edward entered, wearing a sharply tailored tuxedo, his cufflinks catching the chandelier light. He paused, taking her in. "You'll stop the room, Lily." She blushed. "That's not the goal." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But it will happen anyway." When they arrived at the gala, the air hummed with murmurs. Cameras flashed, but the Langley security team kept a respectful distance. As they stepped into the ballroom, conversations softened. Lily could feel the stares, the curiosity. Some saw a scandal reborn. Others saw resilience. Edward guided her to their table. "Ignore the noise," he whispered. "You've already survived worse." Across the room, Sloane Rivers stood near the champagne tower, her silver gown shimmering like armor. Her career had taken a hit after several failed campaigns, but she still knew how to command attention. When her gaze met Lily's, her smile was all venom. "Well, if it isn't Mrs. Langley," Sloane said when she finally approached, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Quite the comeback, I must say. Edward, you have a type, brave, broken women with big eyes." Lily's heart thudded, but she stayed calm. "You're right, Sloane," she said evenly. "It takes bravery to start over. You should try it sometime." Charlotte's eyes gleamed with pride from across the room. Sloane blinked, taken aback. Before she could reply, a waiter passed by, and Lily turned gracefully away. Minutes later, the host called Edward to the stage to present the evening's main award for humanitarian excellence. He took the mic and smiled at the audience. "This year," he began, "I've been reminded that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, through compassion, through courage, through rebuilding after the world writes you off. He turned slightly, meeting Lily's gaze. And tonight, I dedicate this moment to those who prove that dignity and grace are louder than scandal. The audience applauded, and though his words were meant for the crowd, everyone knew who they were truly for. At the press table, a reporter whispered, "She's actually impressive," not what the tabloids said. When the event ended, Lily stepped out onto the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city glittered below, endless and alive. Edward joined her, slipping a shawl over her shoulders. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "For the first time, I don't regret a single scar. They are the proof I made it." He smiled. "You've become the calm in your own storm." From below, photographers caught one final shot. Lily and Edward standing against the Manhattan skyline, her head resting on his shoulder, city lights framing them like stars. By morning, the photo would spread everywhere. But this time, the captions were different. From scandal to strength, the heart of Manhattan's new power couple. For the first time, the world wasn't laughing at her. They were applauding. The morning after the gala, the headlines were kind, almost reverent. Lily Hart Langley, Grace under fire. For once, the internet wasn't mocking her. It was celebrating her. But victories in Lily's life never came without a shadow. That shadow arrived 3 days later in the form of a thick envelope delivered by courier to the Langley townhouse. Edward found her in the nursery, humming softly as she rocked Grace to sleep. "This came for you," he said, holding the envelope with a frown. The letterhead made her stomach twist. "Mercer and Finch, attorneys at law." She opened it, and the color drained from her face. It was a petition. Cole Mercer was filing for partial custody of the triplets. For a moment, Lily couldn't breathe. The paper trembled in her hand. "He's doing this to hurt me," she whispered. "He never even saw them once." Edward's jaw tightened. "He's not going to win." But Lily knew Cole's power, his lawyers, his money, his hunger to control the narrative. He'd used the system the way he always had, like a weapon. By noon, Maya was at the house, her laptop open, papers spread across the dining table. "It's a stunt," she said. "He's trying to stir public doubt before his company's IPO next quarter. If he looks like a devoted father, investors trust him more." Lily paced the room, anger shaking her voice. "He's using our children as PR props." "Yes," Maya replied, "and we're going to make him regret it." They began building their case. Hospital records, Cole's absence, financial neglect, even text messages that proved he'd refused support. Edward offered the Langley legal team, but Lily refused. "No," she said firmly. "If we fight him, we do it as me, not as your wife. I won't let him twist this into another rich versus poor circus." The first hearing was held in a quiet Manhattan courtroom. Cole arrived with his lawyers and Sloan, dressed in designer gray, and feigned humility. He looked smug, charming, exactly the man he wanted the cameras outside to see. When Lily took the stand, he smirked slightly, like a man watching a movie he thought he'd already seen. But when Maya began presenting evidence, his confidence cracked. She displayed emails showing Cole's complete lack of contact during Lily's pregnancy, proof of unpaid medical bills, and most damning of all, a voicemail he'd left in anger months ago. "You think those kids will change anything? They're your problem, not mine." The courtroom went silent. Cole's attorney objected, but the damage was done. Lily's hands shook, but her voice remained steady. "He wasn't there when they were born. He didn't know their names. And now, after the world starts to respect me again, he remembers he's a father. No, Your Honor. He remembers he has an image." The judge looked at her over his glasses, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Mercer, it appears your petition lacks merit. The court will maintain custody with the mother, with limited supervised visitation pending review." Cole's face reddened. Sloan leaned toward him, whispering furiously, "You promised this would work." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Flashbulbs blinded Lily as Maya led her through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Mrs. Langley, are you keeping the children from their father?" Lily stopped, turned, and met the camera's head-on. "I'm protecting them from what their father became." That clip would replay for days across every network. It was the sound of a woman refusing to be a victim anymore. Back in the car, Edward reached over and took her hand. "You were extraordinary in there," he said softly. She smiled faintly, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. "No, I was just tired of losing." As they drove away, Cole watched from the courthouse steps, fury simmering behind his polished mask. Sloane slipped her arm through his, but he barely noticed because, for the first time, he realized something chilling. The woman he once left behind wasn't broken anymore. She was dangerous. 2 months after the custody hearing, the world seemed to have finally stopped spinning against her. Lily was rebuilding her life one small victory at a time. The triplets were growing. Noah laughed first. Grace learned to grab her mother's hair, and Eli had a cry loud enough to wake the city. The Langley townhouse no longer felt like borrowed space. Felt like home. She spent her mornings editing short documentaries for a local studio, working from her favorite corner near the window. Edward often passed by, coffee in hand, pretending he wasn't checking on her. Their love was steady now, quiet but rooted, like something earned through storms, not built on illusions. One afternoon, while Lily fed the babies, Charlotte entered with a letter embossed with gold. "This came for you," she said. "An invitation from the Fifth Avenue Gallery." Lily frowned, wiping formula from her sleeve. "A gallery? I'm not exactly art world material." Charlotte smiled. "It's not about art. They're hosting a charity exhibit, Mothers of Resilience. Photographs and short films about women who rebuilt their lives. They want to feature you." Lily froze. "Me? Why?" "Because your story reached them," Charlotte said softly. "Someone from the journal sent them that clip from the courthouse. The one where you said you were protecting your children from what their father became. It went viral." Lily set down the bottle, her heart pounding. "I didn't do that for attention." "I know," Charlotte replied. "That's why people believe you." A week later, the exhibit opened with champagne glasses and camera flashes. The gallery smelled of lilies and new paint. Large photographs of women lined the walls. Doctors, soldiers, survivors. In the center of the room stood a single framed photo of Lily holding her triplets, taken candidly by Charlotte one morning. The caption read, "Strength isn't inherited, it's rebuilt." Lily stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, uncomfortable under the attention. Edward approached in a tailored navy suit, proud but understated. "You belong here," he said gently. "Doesn't feel like it," she admitted. "I'm just a mom who survived bad luck." He smiled. "No, you're a story people needed to believe in." The evening unfolded beautifully until a familiar voice sliced through the soft music. "Well, if this isn't poetic." Lily turned to see Sloane Rivers gliding toward her in a backless silver dress, the same brand that once sponsored her failed campaign. "You look different," Sloane said, feigning kindness. "Success suits you." "Sloane," Lily said calmly, "you're at a charity event for mothers. Try not to turn it into a runway." Sloane's smile tightened. "You really think this new image will erase your past? You and I both know the press loves a good fall from grace." Before Lily could respond, a soft click echoed nearby. Reporters had turned their cameras toward the confrontation. Edward stepped forward instantly. His commanding presence filled the room. "Is there a problem here?" Sloane's bravado wavered. "Just congratulating your wife." "Good," Edward said, his tone icy. "Then consider it done." The tension dissipated, but the damage remained. That night, Lily scrolled through her phone, reading the latest headlines. Mercer's ex and his wife's rival face off on Fifth Avenue. The cycle was starting anew. But this time, something within her had shifted. Instead of panic, she felt a sense of clarity. She called Ben Walker, her former mentor in television. "Ben," she said, "I want to create something that isn't about me, but about all the women who have been silenced, shamed, or underestimated. A real documentary, honest and raw. Ben's voice held a smile over the phone. "You finally ready to tell your own story?" "No," she said firmly. "I'm ready to tell ours." When she hung up, she felt lighter. For the first time, she wasn't running from the headlines. She was rewriting them. And somewhere in a penthouse overlooking the city, Cole Mercer watched the same story trending. His ex-wife's face splashed across every screen. He poured himself another drink, his reflection distorted in the glass. Because for the first time, it wasn't her reputation burning, it was his. The morning after the gallery event, Manhattan was abuzz with new rumors. Lily's photo from the exhibit had gone viral again, this time shared by business magazines praising her as a symbol of integrity. That single image made her more visible than ever. But visibility in a city built on power always came with a price. At Langley Holdings' glass tower on Park Avenue, Edward sat in a tense board meeting. The discussion centered around a major acquisition deal, a series of high-profile properties spearheaded by a firm linked to Cole Mercer Enterprises. Edward's instincts were on high alert. He didn't trust coincidences, especially when they wore expensive suits. Charlotte leaned in to whisper, "Cole's people have been sniffing around our investors. He's trying to attach himself to this deal to rebuild his reputation." Edward nodded grimly. "Then we need to cut him out before he poisons the well." Across the table, the lead negotiator projected a file onto the screen. "Preliminary funding shows positive numbers," he said. "Cole Mercer's tech subsidiary, Ardent Solutions, is offering infrastructure support for Phase 2. Their PR team claims it'll be good for public image, clean, sustainable redevelopment." Edward's voice cut through the chatter. "Public image is cheap. I want due diligence." By noon, a report landed on his desk. Pages of red flags concealed behind layers of shell companies. Cole's fingerprints were all over it. Fake valuations, insider loans, and a suspicious offshore fund. It wasn't a business partnership. It was a trap. Edward called Maya immediately. "I need you and Lily to come to the office," he said. "You both need to see this." When Lily arrived, the city skyline sparkled behind the glass walls. Edward laid out the documents. "He's using the Langley name to launder his debt," he explained. "If this goes public, it won't just hurt me. It'll drag your name through the mud again." Lily's face paled. "He planned this. The gallery, the charity, everything. It was bait." Maya scanned the pages, her eyes narrowing. "Cole always plays two games at once. He must have leaked the Fifth Avenue confrontation to set the stage. He wanted to paint you as unstable before this deal collapsed. That way, when the media comes for blood, it'll spill on you and Edward both." Lily gripped the edge of the desk. "Not this time. We'll hit first." Maya smirked. "Exactly what I was thinking." They spent hours building their counterattack. A coordinated press release, financial audits, and a discreet leak to a trusted journalist. The evidence of Cole's fraud would appear as if it came from within his own company. That evening, Edward attended the final investor dinner at the River Cafe, which overlooked the Brooklyn Bridge. The restaurant shimmered with chandeliers and the hushed tones of old money. Cole was already there, all charm and confidence, sipping whiskey beside potential investors. "Edward," he said, his smile too slick to be genuine, "I was hoping we'd cross paths. I hear your wife's quite the star lately." Edward's expression didn't flicker. "Funny, I heard you're about to become a headline yourself." Cole's smirk faltered. Just then, his phone buzzed. A flood of notifications lit up his screen. Emails, alerts, breaking news banners. The Wall Street Journal headline glared, "Mercer Enterprises under investigation for financial misconduct." The color drained from his face. Investors began whispering. Cameras flashed. Edward leaned closer, his voice low but lethal. "You built your empire on lies, Cole. Consider this your eviction notice from my city." By the time Edward returned home, Lily was waiting in the living room. "The babies are asleep upstairs." She looked at him with quiet pride. "Did it work?" He loosened his tie, exhaling. "He's finished." Lily nodded, a small smile forming. "Then that's one less shadow over us." Edward brushed a strand of hair from her face. "No," he said softly. "It's your light that burned him down." Across the river, Cole stared out from his penthouse window. The Manhattan skyline reflected in the glass, bright, merciless, and indifferent. His empire was crumbling, and this time there was no one left to blame but himself. The Langley Foundation's annual charity gala at the Plaza Hotel was supposed to be a celebration of progress, an evening of elegance and gratitude. The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers. Violins played over the hum of conversation, and the scent of peonies filled the air. For Lily, it was a full-circle moment. This was where her ex-husband had married Sloane Rivers. Now she was returning not as a scandal, but as the woman everyone wanted to meet. She arrived on Edward's arm, wearing a deep emerald gown. Her hair was swept into soft waves. The flashbulbs exploded like fireworks as they stepped out of their car. "Mrs. Langley, over here," photographers called out. She smiled, graceful but composed, knowing that every frame tonight would tell the world who she had become. Inside, the city's elite swirled through champagne and gossip. Whispers followed her everywhere, admiration mixed with envy. "That's her," one woman murmured. "The girl who turned scandal into an empire." Lily felt steady, untouchable, until a familiar voice cut through the noise like a poisoned dart. "Well, if it isn't Manhattan's miracle." Sloane Rivers materialized, her silver dress clinging to her like a second skin, a flute of champagne in her hand, her smile flawless, her eyes deadly. "You've come a long way from Queens," she said sweetly. "Tell me, do you ever miss being ordinary?" Lily's lips curved into a cool smile. "No, but I do miss when people like you didn't matter." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sloane's face hardened. "Careful, darling. I built this world before you ever stepped into it." "Then maybe it's time someone remodeled it," Lily retorted. Before Sloane could respond, a deeper voice cut through the tension. "Ladies," Cole Mercer said as he stepped closer, looking unervingly composed in a black tuxedo. "Still making scenes, I see." Lily turned to him, her pulse quickening. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," he said smoothly. "Unlike some people, I still have connections." His smirk was the same one that used to make her stomach churn. Only now it filled her with disgust. "Security should be more selective," Edward said, appearing at her side, his presence a wall of calm power. Cole ignored him. "Relax, Langley. I just wanted to congratulate the happy couple. Quite the story arc. From my ex-wife to a billionaire's bride. Maybe I should thank you for polishing what I left behind." The words hit like a physical blow. The room went silent. Lily took a slow breath and stepped forward. "You should thank me for surviving you." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small envelope. "You remember these?" she said, holding up photocopies of legal documents and old financial ledgers, proof of Cole's fraudulent shell companies. "You forged these during our marriage. I kept them. The SEC has them now." Cole's smile faltered for the first time. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Lily asked softly. "Or maybe you've just run out of lies." Gasps echoed. Sloane stepped back, her eyes darting between them. Edward didn't move, simply watching as Lily reclaimed the stage that had once been stolen from her. Cole's mask cracked. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Lily met his glare with a calm fire. "No, Cole, I already did. Now it's your turn." He started to speak, but Sloane suddenly turned to the crowd, her voice trembling. "He told me those accounts were clean. I didn't know." The photographers pounced. The flashbulbs went off again, brighter, more intrusive. Within seconds, the man who once held Manhattan's loyalty was cornered, caught between the woman he'd betrayed and the one who had finally exposed him. Lily turned to Edward, her hand steady in his. "Let's go home." As they walked out, the reporters shouted, the cameras chasing them like moths to a flame, but Lily didn't look back. Outside, the city glittered against the night sky. Edward squeezed her hand. "You just ended him," he whispered. She exhaled slowly, the air sharp with victory. "No," she said softly. "He ended himself." And behind them, inside the golden ballroom of the plaza, the empire of Cole Mercer finally began to crumble. The fallout from the plaza confrontation hit Manhattan like a thunderstorm. Overnight, every major paper carried the story. Cole Mercer faces fraud allegations after public clash with ex-wife at charity gala. The photo of Lily standing tall, envelope in hand, made the front page of the New York Times. For once, she wasn't the scandal. She was the reckoning. But Cole Mercer wasn't the kind of man who went down quietly. 2 days later, a courier arrived at the Langley townhouse with another envelope. This one bore the seal of the New York Supreme Court. Edward read it first, his expression hardening. "He's suing you," he said. "Defamation." Lily's stomach dropped. "Defamation. He committed fraud. He's claiming you fabricated evidence to destroy his business," Edward said, his jaw clenched. "He's trying to paint you as the villain." For a moment, the old fear crept back into her chest. The same helplessness she'd felt during her divorce when Cole's lawyers painted her as unstable and greedy. But this time she wasn't alone. Maya arrived within the hour, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her legal pad already filled with notes. "We hit him with the truth," she said. "The real documents, the timestamps, the witnesses. You want a war, Lils? Let's give him one." The next few weeks blurred into strategy meetings, late-night calls, and depositions. The tabloids churned out stories daily. Some true, most twisted. Langley wife fights back. Ex-lovers, revenge, or justice? Lily tried not to read them, but sometimes she caught glimpses in grocery store aisles, her own face staring back at her under cruel headlines. Edward shielded her as much as he could, refusing interviews, tightening security. "He's desperate," he told her one night as they walked through the quiet garden. "He knows if he loses this case, his career and reputation are over." Lily exhaled shakily. "He should have thought about that before ruining mine." When the court date finally arrived, the room was packed with press. Cole walked in wearing his usual armor, a custom suit and a smug smile. But up close, Lily could see the cracks. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie slightly crooked. The hearing began. Cole's attorney painted a picture of betrayal, claiming Lily had doctored financial statements out of vengeance. They called her emotionally unstable, vindictive, and obsessed. The same tired narrative, only now it fell flat. When it was Maya's turn, she called their first witness, a former Ardent Solutions accountant, who testified that Cole had ordered falsified ledgers to inflate the company's value before its IPO. The courtroom murmured. Then Maya played an audio recording. Cole's voice was unmistakable, sneering. "No one's ever going to trace that money. She's too naive to understand numbers anyway." Cole's face drained of color. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Mercer, is that your voice?" Cole's lawyer stammered. "Objection overruled," the judge said sharply. The rest of the trial was just noise. The evidence was overwhelming. The media spun it as Mercer's meltdown. Investors began withdrawing. Sloane vanished from the courtroom halfway through, her phone buzzing with messages from brands cutting ties. When the ruling came, it was swift. Cole Mercer's defamation claim was dismissed with prejudice. The judge ordered him to pay legal fees and issue a formal apology within 7 days. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Lily again. One shouted, "Mrs. Langley, do you feel vindicated?" Lily paused at the top of the courthouse steps. "I don't need vindication," she said. "I just needed the truth." Her words aired live on every major network. Even the anchors went quiet for a moment. Later that evening, as the city glowed beneath their window, Edward poured her a glass of wine. "It's over," he said. Lily looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "No, it's not. He'll apologize, but not because he's sorry, because the world finally made him." A week later, the Wall Street Journal published a half-page statement from Cole Mercer. "I apologize to Lily Hart Langley for my false claims and past conduct. She acted with integrity. I did not." Lily read it once, folded the paper, and whispered, "That's the only signature of his I'll ever keep." For the first time in years, she felt free. By June, Manhattan had softened beneath the glow of summer. The city that once devoured Lily now seemed to bow to her. Magazines praised her for her resilience. Journalists called her the woman who rebuilt her own legend. And streaming platforms were already requesting the rights to her documentary project. But for the first time, Lily didn't care about the noise. She wanted peace. Edward noticed before she said a word. "We're leaving the city," he told her one morning at breakfast, sliding a folded note across the table. "A week in the Hamptons. No press, no meetings, just you, me, and the kids." Lily smiled softly. "Do billionaires actually take vacations?" "Only when someone reminds them to," he said, kissing her hand. The Langley family's beach house sat on a quiet stretch of East Hampton, surrounded by dunes and white roses. The air smelled like salt and sunlight. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, whispering secrets the city would never understand. The first night there, Lily stood barefoot in the sand, watching the triplets toddle along the shore, their laughter swallowed by the wind. Edward grilled on the patio, sleeves rolled up, the firelight painting his face gold. For the first time in years, she didn't feel watched, judged, or hunted. She felt human again. Over dinner, they spoke about small things: Eli's fascination with seashells, Grace's stubbornness, Noah's obsession with birds. It was simple and ordinary, yet to Lily it felt like magic. When the babies were asleep, Edward opened a bottle of red wine and poured 2 glasses. They sat on the deck, the sound of waves lapping against the pilings. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first met you, I thought you were made of glass, fragile but beautiful." Lily raised an eyebrow. "That's not exactly a compliment." He smiled. "I was wrong. You're steel wrapped in silk. You bend, but you never break." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I had no choice. If I broke, they would have drowned me." Edward's gaze lingered on her. "You're not fighting anymore, Lily. You're building." For a moment, silence stretched between them, comfortable, warm. The moonlight danced across the water, reflecting like scattered diamonds. The next morning, she woke early and brewed coffee while the house slept. She stepped outside with her mug, the ocean breeze brushing her hair. Her phone buzzed with a notification, an email from the New York Times. "We'd like to feature you in our Women Who Redefine Success series." Lily smiled faintly, but didn't reply. She deleted the email and instead took a picture of the sunrise to send to Maya. The caption read, "Finally breathing." Later that day, Ben Walker, her old mentor, called from Los Angeles. "Lily, I saw the news. The documentary pitch. Netflix wants it. They want you as executive producer." Her hand froze midair. "Me? Not just a consultant?" "No, you. It's your story now. You own it." When she hung up, tears welled in her eyes. She turned toward the water where Edward played with the children, splashing and laughing. She realized that success didn't feel like applause or headlines. It felt like this: salt on her lips, laughter in the air, and a peace she hadn't known she was searching for. That evening, they ate dinner under the fading sky. Lily watched the sunset burn orange and pink over the ocean, her heart full. "You know what I want next?" she asked. Edward looked up. "What?" "A foundation," she said, "for single mothers. Real help. Housing, education, childcare. Something that changes lives, not just headlines." He reached across the table, his eyes soft. "Then we'll build it together." Lily smiled, the wind tangling her hair. "It's strange," she whispered. "For so long, revenge kept me alive. Now it doesn't matter anymore." Edward brushed her hand. "That's how you know you've won." As night fell over the Hamptons, the waves whispered like applause, carrying away every echo of her old pain. For the first time, Lily wasn't surviving, fighting, or proving anything. She was simply free. September brought crisp air and a sense of change. Manhattan glittered under its autumn lights. But this time, Lily wasn't returning to chase survival. She was returning to lead. Her documentary, The Mothers Who Stayed, was premiering at the Metropolitan Cultural Center. It told stories of women who refused to break, narrated not by actors, but by the survivors themselves. For the first time, Lily wasn't the subject of a story. She was the storyteller. The red carpet outside buzzed with cameras. Though this time the flashes felt different. They weren't hunting for scandal. They were celebrating strength. Edward adjusted her shawl before they stepped out of the car. "You ready?" he asked softly. Lily smiled. "I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it." Inside, the crowd was a blend of elegance and emotion. Critics, journalists, activists. Everyone wanted to see the woman who turned heartbreak into purpose. The theater lights dimmed, and the first scene flickered onto the giant screen. A montage of single mothers rocking babies, clocking in at late-night jobs, reading bedtime stories under flickering lamps. Then came Lily's voiceover. "They told us we were broken, but broken things don't vanish. They rebuild stronger." The audience was silent. Some wiped away tears. When the credits rolled, the room erupted into a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Lily's eyes glistened as she held Edward's hand. "You did it," he whispered. But not everyone was clapping for her. At the back of the hall, half hidden behind the curtains, stood Cole Mercer. His face looked older, the sharp arrogance replaced by exhaustion. The scandal, the lawsuits, the frozen assets, everything had caught up with him. Sloane had sold her tell-all interview months ago, leaving him publicly humiliated. He was a man stripped bare. When the crowd cleared, Lily found him waiting near the exit, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know," he admitted. "But I needed to see what you became. I became what you tried to destroy." He nodded, shame flickering across his face. "I deserved that. For what it's worth, I saw your film. It's beautiful." Lily's throat tightened. "You saw it?" "Yeah," he said softly. "You showed what I never understood. Real strength doesn't need a spotlight." He hesitated, eyes downcast. "They offered me a settlement if I turned over evidence on the board members who helped me cover up the fraud. I did it. I'm testifying tomorrow. I'll lose everything, but maybe it's time I did." For the first time, she believed him. Not because he sounded sorry, but because he looked human again. Fragile, small, real. "Good," she said quietly. "You can't undo the past, Cole, but you can stop repeating it." He smiled sadly. "And you? You found something I never had, peace." She took a breath, steady and calm. "I found myself. That was enough." Before he left, Cole handed her a small envelope. "It's for the kids. College fund. No names, no headlines. Just don't tell them where it came from." Lily hesitated, then accepted it. Not for him, but for the children who would never know the chaos their father caused. "Goodbye, Cole." "Goodbye, Lily," he said. And for once, there was no venom, no bitterness, only silence. That night at the post-premiere gala, journalists surrounded Lily again. "Mrs. Langley, what message do you want your film to send?" one asked. She looked into the camera, her voice steady. "That women don't need saving, they need to be seen." Applause rippled through the room. Edward watched her from across the hall, pride softening his features. Outside, the Manhattan skyline shimmered against the night sky. Somewhere in the distance, a police cruiser drove past. The world kept moving, restless as ever. But inside Lily's heart, there was only stillness. For the first time in her life, justice didn't taste like revenge. Tasted like peace. Winter returned to Manhattan softly that year, covering the city in quiet snow instead of chaos. The Langley townhouse on the Upper East Side glowed with warm light, laughter echoing through its halls. 3 toddlers, Noah, Grace, and Eli, raced across the polished floors, leaving trails of toy cars and giggles in their wake. Lily stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching them tumble onto a pile of pillows beside the fireplace. It was their 3rd birthday. The living room had been transformed into a small wonderland. Pale blue balloons, ribbons, and a cake shaped like 3 tiny crowns. Nothing extravagant, nothing headline-worthy, just family, laughter, and peace. Charlotte entered carrying gift bags. "They're spoiled already," she said, setting them down with a mock groan. Lily smiled. "They deserve to be. They were born fighting. From the kitchen, Edward's voice floated through. So was their mother. Lily turned, warmth filling her chest. He was wearing an apron dusted with flour, holding a tray of homemade cookies. You're supposed to be a billionaire, she teased. Not a baker. He grinned. Even billionaires have to earn their keep. Maya arrived next, holding a wrapped gift and a grin. Look at this empire you built, Lils, triplets, a husband who cooks, and peace that actually lasts. Miracles do exist. Lily laughed, hugging her. Miracles or consequences that finally ran their course. They shared a quiet look, remembering everything it had taken to get here. The courtrooms, the heartbreak, the rebirth. Outside, snow drifted down over the city that once buried her, but had now become hers again. Later that evening, when the guests had gone and the children slept, Lily and Edward sat by the fire. He handed her a small box wrapped in white ribbon. Another gift? She asked. You already gave me everything I could ever want. Not this, he said, his voice gentle. Inside was a silver locket engraved with 4 initials. L&G. When they're older, he said softly, I want them to know who you were before all this, the woman who fought for them before she had anyone to fight with. Tears started to form in her eyes. You make me sound like some kind of hero. You are, he replied, plain and simple. They stayed quiet for a bit, just listening to the fire snap and pop. Lily ran her thumb over the engraving on the locket. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that night bus hadn't broken down? Edward gave a small smile. Then I'd probably still be the kind of guy who thought kindness was just a word. And you'd still be out there walking in the rain, trying to tell yourself you were all alone. She leaned into him, shutting her eyes. It's funny how pain always seems to lead you to exactly where you're supposed to be. He kissed the top of her head. That's the thing about survival, though. It's really just the beginning. As the firelight flickered and danced, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. Absolute stillness. She wasn't waiting for the next bad thing to happen, or plotting her revenge. She was just living, finally at peace in a life she'd built herself. Across town in a simple, quiet apartment, stripped of anything fancy, Cole Mercer was sitting on his couch, just staring at a small framed photo. It was a newspaper clipping of the triplets. His hands, which used to be so steady, were shaking as he quietly whispered, Happy birthday, kids. No cameras, no crowd, just the echo of everything he'd lost. Meanwhile, back at the Langley home, Lily quietly slipped into the nursery. The triplets were fast asleep, their little cheeks rosy, their tiny chests gently rising and falling together. She brushed a stray curl off of Grace's forehead and whispered, You're safe now. You're home. She stayed there for a moment longer, then turned off the light. Downstairs, Edward was waiting for her by the window. Outside, the Manhattan skyline was shimmering under the falling snow. He put his arm around her waist as she came to stand beside him. Everything okay? He asked. She smiled softly. More than okay. And as the snow kept falling over the city that had once broken her into pieces, Lily Hart Langley finally understood what it truly meant to win. Not through revenge, but through peace, love, and the legacy she was building.